That's Russell Jones. I live in a little place called Leek, which is in Staffordshire. I've been there for about 22 years.
You know, the very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier podcast.
Every horse, whatever it was doing, had a season. Once their competition season finished, they took the shoes off, they chucked it out in the field with some other horses, and it had a 2, maybe 3 months period where it went and remembered what being a horse was all about.
Even in a cheaper area, your prices should be set by your skill level, by your experience. And some people might not feel that they're worth, as much as others. But if you're only charging $160 to shoe a horse, then the only way you're making money is on your trims.
The WCB was a way to make sure that you kept the trade alive. I think I'm a custodian of the trade, so it's like we have to keep it going.
It was hard, but you adapt and overcome, and that probably gets to me where I am now. It's problem solving, horseshoeing's problem solving, and back in the day it was problem solving how to be as strong as the older apprentices. So it's all about adapting and overcoming, which was good.
I know we learn every day, but you do have to put yourself outside the box and just continue to learn, which is why I was just trying to do my fellowship, because I still have apprentices, and if I stay at my AW, I'm stagnant.
Welcome, everyone. Well, it's been a couple weeks, and I'm finally starting to get my voice back. I apologize for the gruff-sounding intro to our last episode. This one is hopefully a little bit clearer. By the time this episode goes live, we should have both a Canadian and an American apparel store online available to buy swag. My partner in crime, Heather, over at Twisted Spur Media, has been working really hard on this, so fingers crossed that it has come to fruition by the time this is released. There will be links to both stores in the show notes. And since we last spoke, I've had a few generous listeners subscribe to Buying the Podcast a coffee, and I would like to personally thank them here. Wade Halliday, who hails from just a little west of me here in Ontario. Shira Ludica, a former guest from South Carolina. My friend Brendan Polson from Vermont. And Jeff Smith. And I apologize, Jeff, I don't know where you're from. Anyway, we really appreciate your support of our little project here. Every little bit helps us produce more episodes. Today's guest was another gentleman that I got to meet whilst over at the International at Stoneleigh. Russell Jones was the judge for the apprentice teams and the individual competition. And if taking the piss out of somebody was an Olympic sport, I would have to say that he and Danny Bennett would be nose to nose for the gold medal. I wonder if this has anything to do with their military training. As you will hear, Russell was in the Army as a farrier, and I don't know if Danny has ever mentioned it before on his podcast, but he too was an Army farrier. Anyway, it was an honor to meet Russell and to spend some time with him. He was serious when he needed to be as the judge, but it was also fun when we would all hang out socially afterwards. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. You've been one of the most entertaining people, other than Daniel, because I've spent more time with him, at all the dinners. I've gone to bed each night with a very sore face from laughing.
I'm glad you thought it was funny.
Yeah, sometimes it was at my expense, but that's okay.
But sometimes you have to have a similar humor to somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise it doesn't always come off.
Well, that's why I think I quite enjoy here, because everybody does seem to have a similar sense of humor to what I do, so maybe a little twisted.
I think it helps an awful lot, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In life, if you can be like that, to be honest.
For sure.
I think some people you have to be very careful that you're not too controversial.
And offensive, yeah. And you never know what the offending thing will be. So you were here as a judge for the apprentice team, were you not? For the apprentice teams, I guess.
That's correct, yeah. They also had an individual this year, which was quite good. There was 30 in the individuals, where they had to make a concave bar shoe and a plain stamp hind. And then there was 7 teams this year, which had to make a specimen shoe. 4 members had to make a specimen shoe each.
Okay.
And that was quite good. There's some good shoes, some that needed a bit of work, but that's always the case.
Yeah. Overall, a pretty good experience?
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's my first time that I've been invited to judge at the International.
Okay, that must be quite the honor.
Yeah, I've done the Home International before. That was good, but it's always nice to do the big one, or one of the big ones.
Well, and something that I've asked a few people that have been judges before, what was the first time going from competitor to judge like? And what did you take home from that experience? Did it change the way you competed?
Not really the way I competed, but to be honest with you, I was very, very lucky that I was invited to judge the Home International, and I was the Army representative to judge.
Okay.
And that was with a very good farrier, well-known farrier called Sandy Beveridge.
Yes.
And he's a super bloke, and he's very calming, very cool influence on you, but he's very knowledgeable. He's been an examiner for many, many years, but he's also been a fierce competitor for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, why aren't you a judge? He didn't have to be a company judge then to judge the Home International. I said, never thought about it, to be honest with you. He said, well, you should do it. I said, well, maybe one day. He said, no, we'll have this as your probationary. Leave it with me. So
you had no choice.
But that was quite a big competition to judge. Obviously, I was very honoured to judge it. Mm-hmm. I'm proud to judge it. But I started thinking, oh, well, we'll see how we go. I owe an awful lot to Sandy for pushing me in the direction, really. Mm-hmm. And then it just grew from there. I still like competing. I don't compete as much as I used to. I've been very lucky to work round and with an awful lot of good competitors, people who are friends over many, many years. But when you're judging. I really do enjoy it. I can't deny it. If you get asked to do it, you've got to stand on and do it. And hopefully, especially with the younger ones, you've got to encourage the younger ones. I think COVID's been really bad for everybody, but particularly the apprentices. They all moan about apprentices not being very good, not this, that, and the other. But they have had 2 years of their apprenticeship cut short as regards competing.
No kidding.
And everybody knows that being competitive keeps you sharp, but it gets you to work to a time schedule.
Yeah, and that is something I definitely lacked. I competed just a little bit. It's certainly not as much of a culture back home as it is here. Everybody seems to compete. If you've gone to school, I feel like most people were kind of pushed to at least try it. And it seems like a fairly strong thing. Was that your experience from school or not?
Well, no, I went down the Army route, didn't I? So I couldn't get an apprenticeship in Civvy Street because at the time there was just so difficult to get an apprenticeship. I don't know why. People were not taking on. There wasn't as many approved training farriers or masters or whatever you want to call them. So I decided to go in the Army. I did mine in the Army.
And that's why you went into the Army?
Yeah, I went in solely to be a farrier. Obviously, I had to do 3 years soldiering first, and then I was lucky enough to get into the forge. And then I did 6 years as a qualified farrier, and I came out and then set my own business up. So,
oh, okay.
I was lucky enough then to meet people, and then they taught me to shoe horses properly. On the competition side, you mentioned that, you come here and you see people compete and you think, oh, wow, they're really good. But you don't see how they get that good.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've got some very good friends that are very, very good. And they haven't got that good by not doing a lot behind the anvil.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
I mean hours and hours, giving up time, giving up family life to get where they are. So it is a dedication. And when you get some people together, like at this level, and you see the shoes that the masters have made, and I've seen them, and the standard is phenomenal, and it's just a credit to them for their dedication.
Right.
So let's hope that it continues.
Mm-hmm. Several people have mentioned this, that there is talk of things plateauing, because I've heard people say back in the day, if you see shoes that were judged 20 years ago versus the ones that are on the table now, just how finessed and just the quality of the forging has changed. Would you say that is a thing, or is that a North American thing?
I personally think that there's plenty of people have been before us.
Okay.
And a lot of these shoes were made by top men and women many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not disputing the actual finish, but that's the finishing systems they have.
That's
now.
right. Yeah.
The sanding systems to clean the shoes up, basically. I mean, wow, the finish. But you can't take away the fact that a good quality, well-forged, well-made shoe, it's difficult to. So I understand what you're saying, but I think there's been plenty good forgers 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, the standard is raising all the time, which is great.
Yeah.
But also we're lucky enough to have different tools that help us to achieve that.
Yeah. So technology, even though it doesn't seem like technology, it has improved. Yeah.
Look at YouTube, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, years ago, you would have to go to a competition and you'd have to look at the timetable to see when the good boys are on, or the girls.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to get a prime spot on your box around that person's anvil, not being in the way, to watch. And you would watch the whole, from when that clock started to when it finished, and you'd be lucky enough to get in and actually see that shoe or whatever. Well, you'd have to watch to see how they got it there.
Right.
And nowadays, the young ones are very lucky. They get everything on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fantastic.
Yeah.
Right, X-rays and things like that's great. But also for a learning curve, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So things move forward.
Yep.
But I think the forging was still good.
It was there.
It was there, yeah.
You must have been pretty determined to become a farrier if by one route you couldn't do it, you chose the Army route, because it's not even a really direct route. The fact that you have to do 3 years as a soldier first, what made you decide you wanted to be a farrier?
I was lucky enough to have ponies when I was a child. My mum was obsessed with horses. I was brought up in a pub. My dad, he used to fund everything. I'm very lucky in that respect, but my mum was horse mad, and she made sure that myself and my brother were just lucky enough to have the ponies. And my love grew for watching the farrier. And then literally just down the road from the pub where I lived, there's the local farrier, a chap called David Spencer. And I just used to mither him to death when I was a kid. I used to go there on every Saturday and the school holidays. He was very straight with me. He said, I'm not training any more apprentices. He's more than welcome to come. I used to do all sorts, taking shoes off, clenching up. This is as a young 14, 15-year-old kid. He said, I won't mess you about. I'm not having any more apprentices, which was good. Not good for me, but it was. At least he was straight with me.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated. And I couldn't get anywhere, so I went in the Army. And I'm glad I did do it, really, because it gave me a good grounding.
Yeah.
But then I was lucky enough to meet some of the best farriers in the world and tag onto them and annoy them and pester them and raise the bar, so to speak.
Now, who were some of those key people when you first started that part of your journey?
When I first left the Army, I met Alan Calvert.
Okay.
Who is a legend, as you know, unfortunately died recently, and Mark Caldwell and Annie Claxton, and they were at Middlewich. They opened a little supply shop, and I used to go in there talking and mither, and then eventually Alan would say, come and, I'll show you how to make this, and we used to do that, and it progressed from that, and then I started competing a bit more. Ivan Bell, who was in the Army, he was a massive part as well, because he used to push you, to compete. He loved you to compete, so he sort of welcomed that. So whilst I was in the Army, he really pushed us. And even when I did leave the Army, I used to meet up with him regular at competitions. We'd have a good chin wag, and he'd say, well, you really come on, and blah, blah. And then I was competing once at Melton Mowbray, which is a big Army base, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have a competition in November. And it's Friday's the military and ex-military day. Saturday's the Tool and Fullard Hunter Day on the foot. And on the Sunday is a therapeutic day, which is a bar shoe on the foot and a bar shoe specimen. So it's a fantastic, very well run, as you can imagine, competition, but fiercely competitive.
Yeah.
And I went there one time, and I'd seen Gary Darlow about. He came over and he knew I didn't live too far away from him. He came over, he said, how have you got on? I said, yeah, but not so. He said, you need to come to me. And it was, he said, if you want to come, blah, blah. I didn't even know where he lived as such. And I took him up on his word, and it went from there, and I started going and practicing, and I'd say, I'll be there about 5:30. Is that okay? And I used to get there about 7, and because I was always so busy. We just became very good friends over a period of time, and I've just been very, very lucky to be hanging on to his curtails, whatever you call it,
Right, yeah.
And, we've become great friends. And then there's so many people then on the circuit that I've met. There's Smithy, Dave Smith, Spud Allison, Tony Wilson, who's still a good friend. I still compete with Tony. And there's Jay. There's so many, that I couldn't just, you've put me on the spot now. But
oh, I'm sorry.
And Matthew Randall's only lives up the road from me. Matt, obviously he's a lot younger than I am, but he's always there if you can't make a shoe or don't know how to make a shoe. He'll advise you, even at, as experienced as we can be. They've always seen a trick somewhere or whatever, and he'll put you straight. And I don't want someone to say, oh, yeah, it's brilliant that, well done, mate. So, well, actually, I think you can do better. And you think, oh, sugar. Got to go and make another one, And it's great because we live in a triangle, like really, there's sort of between half an hour between Matt and then half an hour between Gary and myself. So we're going to... I think the camaraderie is the main thing, and it was very much like, you think it's just in the military, but then when you meet people like these and you're doing the circuit with them, and it's just fantastic. And then when you meet up with them again, it's just brilliant, Even like last night, we got back from judging, got back in the hotel, all the bits and bobs had been done, and the bar was alive. It was like it used to be. It was, wow, Yep. At 7:00 at night, it was buzzing, and everybody was in good spirit, and it's so nice to see that. It just thinks, yeah, that's why you do it, it's, you come here and you put the hours in and nobody obviously takes any money off it, but, you want everyone to have a good time. And I think there's a lot of people that respect the Purple Army, which, the ones behind the scenes, and everybody sort of knows everybody, and a lot of favours are done, and it's just, it's a good team. It's a good setup. Very, very well run.
I was very impressed with how well Mark ran it too. Yeah. He put a lot of time and effort into it, and then had this whole group of people behind him.
It's also nice though, because I went to the bar after we'd done our bit, literally, and you think, oh God, they're all there, and they're really getting some down and really partying hard, which is great. And I think, thank God I've got my truck here, because I can't have a drink and go back to the hotel, But I had a good chat with everyone, and one or two people came up and said, thanks very much for judging. And in particular, we'll mention the French and the Americans.
Yep.
And there was others as well. But, they actually came and said to me, thank you very much for judging, which is quite nice.
Because, no kidding.
You don't want a pat on the back, but it's nice that they take time
to show that they appreciate it.
Yeah. That's quite nice, really.
It's been interesting watching, because in the initial, like on the Friday, as everybody sort of rolled in, you can see the teams are separate from each other. And then the first night or the second night at the bar, some people are starting to talk with each other. And then by last night, everybody was talking to everybody. The Americans were sitting with the Swedes, and you do see a lot of that bonding happen.
You must remember, though, these guys, they want to be here. They're not being forced to be here, and they want to do the best for their country.
Yes. Yeah.
Individuals, nice, but it's their team that they want to be here for.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to be fiercely competitive, and they want to be alienated, but they actually like one another. And a lot of people know one another for many, many years, as you know.
Yeah.
You've got to have that, and that's a competitive edge.
That's right, yeah.
Hopefully, if we survive after the prize giving, everybody will have a good night.
For sure.
I just think it's a really good family, a big family, and people are welcomed into it. There's no hostility towards anybody, and I think it's fantastic. Like, there's a language barrier, obviously. The foreign people speak a lot better English than I speak there. It was quite funny when I did the manager's address with the shoes on the Friday night, and the French team were in there, and I said something to them, and they answered me, and I speak a little bit of French.
Oh, okay.
And I answered them in French, and they looked at me as if think, oh my God, he actually understood what we were saying about him.
Yeah.
It was quite funny. I moved away very quickly then.
Yeah. And it was fun watching anybody who did know French would try and help them at various points throughout the weekend. When they were struggling with something, somebody would jump in and try and help translate.
But that's what it's all about. You'd want someone to do that to you if you
Exactly.
went over to their country, wouldn't you? So you've got to welcome, you've got to embrace people, and you've got to help them. Most people want help. They just don't like to ask for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just be nice to somebody.
One other thing, what sort of horses, what does your book look like? What type of horses do you work on?
I do a lot of happy hackers these days.
Do you?
Yeah. I used to do a lot of hunters, but the hunting's been very difficult for people now with various reasons. The antis have prevented them from hunting, and
okay.
there's a lot of unrest. I live in Staffordshire, but I used to live in Cheshire, so there's a lot of hunters in Cheshire. So predominantly I did quite a few hunters, a lot of show jumpers, some eventers, some dressage, but now it's mainly happy hackers and a few show jumpers, but I do anything if it stands. I'm not really bothered. Competition horses can be high maintenance, and I want an easy life these days. So that said, I would do them if they were
good to deal with.
I've got one apprentice currently, and I've got another one starting a week tomorrow. So they sort of overlap a little bit. So I still train a bit. Keep thinking I'm going to not bother, but you think, I'll just have another one.
Yeah.
I'll just have another one. It's a bit like in the bar last night.
Yeah. Longer term consequences.
Yeah. There's one thing I will like to just say is it's becoming very difficult. There's an awful lot of training farriers out there at the moment. And some of them are my very good friends, and they've relinquished their approved training farrier certificate because of the system. When I mean the system, the way it is now, the price of everything, wages in particular, minimum wage, I'm not going to spout off, it's terrible, we're so poor and we can't afford to pay them, but it's got to be affordable. And if you're not shoeing an awful lot of horses, you can't really afford to have it. So I think it's a luxury having an apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully it will prolong, in my case, my working life.
Right,
Because,
yeah.
I don't want to, what else do I do? I shoe horses.
Right.
So I think that, I don't know what can be done in the industry. I've no idea. I'm not that clever. But I just think that really there's a lot of good people out there that are more than capable of training, but there's no attraction.
Yeah, there's no incentive to
no
do
incentive. And I think it's very sad because once those people hang the hammers up, they'll be gone.
Right.
And it's difficult to get them back.
Before we get to Russell's short answers, a word from our sponsor, Cody Gregory, LLC. Now, as you heard in the last episode, I had just finished spending a week down in the Heartland for their blacksmith course. It has been a yearly tradition since I first started going down there many years ago now. Unfortunately for me on this trip, I made an amateur mistake and came for the second week, not the first. You see, whenever there is a blacksmith course, Cody makes a batch of tools. And as soon as he has finished them, he brings them to the school, and they are swept up and paid for in the blink of an eye. So a week later, when I showed up asking for another one of his rulers, I lost out on that one. You see, Cody has made this ruler that fits conveniently in your knife pocket, and it is perfect for measuring feet. For anyone attempting a practical horse portion of an exam, you need this ruler. As with all of Cody's tools, a lot of thought and input has gone into this little creation. The ruler is double-sided, and each side is marked for a left or right foot. Being made of brass, it's really easy to mark it with a permanent marker. So, as you get your hoof measurements, you can tick them off and refer back to them as you go about making the shoes. Then when you're finished with that horse and ready to move on, you can just spray the ruler with a spray-on deodorant or brake cleaner. As an added little tweak, Cody rounded one end of the ruler, so you always know which end to grab to measure the foot. Needless to say, I use mine every day, and I was hoping to grab another one for my Florida rig. And that is where I lost out. So if you happen to come across one at your local Farrier supply, grab it as soon as you can. Otherwise, you can order them online at CodyGregoryLLC.com. This portion of the podcast is called the Stratum Tectorium. These are the short answer, surface stuff questions, but it's okay if the guest wants to go deeper. Enjoy. Do you have a favorite book?
Not really. I'm not a big reader. No, the last thing I read was Stevie Fisher's book, and that was very, very good. I didn't put it down until I finished it.
Which book is that?
It was Stevie Fisher. He's got is it locked-in syndrome or...
Oh, right. Yeah.
What an inspiration. He wrote this book. He can only blink his eye, you see, and so you need to read it.
Yeah, I've heard of this book.
I bet Danny will have one. You need to read that book.
Okay.
I couldn't put it down. It's amazing. It's about his life and that. And he's such a character. He's such a character and so strong-minded, It's fantastic. And it's very, very unfortunate that happened to him, but he's so strong in his mind, to be so positive.
Mm-hmm.
You need to read the book.
Okay. I'll put that one on the list. Do you have a favorite rounding hammer?
I've got a couple of hammers. I've been lucky enough to, when I was in the army, I always used to use what's called a White House cat's head hammer.
I've heard of this hammer. Yeah.
I use one of those on a daily basis.
Okay.
But I've also, Derek Gardner, he's a good friend, and I was very fortunate enough to have one of his early days hammer, and I've got that, and I've got another. I've got 2 or 3 of Derek's hammers, and I quite favour those. I had a Bruce Wilcox hammer. That was very, very good. Because I'm tight, I buy a lot from car boots, and I've got a really, really good square. I've got a good sort of 2.5, 2 3/4 pound square-faced hammer.
Oh, really?
Draws steel like you wouldn't believe. It cost me £1.50 from the car boot. I didn't sleep for a fortnight. It was so expensive.
And did you bargain them down?
Of course, I bought something else, and I knocked them down on that too.
Do you have a favorite make of rasp?
I like the Hella Legends, yeah. I like the blue ones in winter and the green ones in summer.
Right. Is that just based on how the foot either...
I think the muddy, wet feet, they don't like the green one clogs up very quickly, but that's no detriment on the rest. They're very good.
Do you have a favorite anvil?
Not really, no. Again, guess what? I bought some cheap ones and ground the faces up. I've got the same travel anvil I've probably had for 30 plus years now.
Okay.
Steve Sargent made it. It's a long time ago. So, and that's, I'd be lost without that, really.
They become a very familiar shape.
You just get used to them, don't
Yeah.
you? People say an anvil's an anvil, and it is to a degree, but there's some really good shop anvils out there, so I'm not knocking them, but I've got a very big, I've got 2 or 3 anvils. I've got a very big anvil of my own. I just put edges on it, and you get used to it.
Away you go. Yeah. Do you have a dream Farrier rig?
Not really, no. Me personally, or...
Yeah.
No, I just have I use a pickup these days. It's got an N&J back on it, and I like them.
These are the folks that are here, right?
That's it here, yeah. A big shout out to them. I've had the same canopy, because I'm tight. For 9 years, it's been on 3 vehicles.
Oh,
So
wow,
I did
okay.
actually go and speak to Nick whilst I've been here. And I said, I might be having a new rig. And he said, no, you won't. I said, well, I'm an ambassador for you. It's 9 years, and it's only had gas struts and new lights, LED lights, because I melted the lights that were in it. So I think that's a good advert for them.
No kidding.
Yeah, everything still works on it.
So in saying that, you probably said, so you should probably give me a discount on the next new one, right?
Yeah, if you're listening, Nick, yeah, you can sponsor the next one. Yeah.
I see you've got an angle you keep working. Yeah. Favorite section of steel to work with?
Good question. I like concave.
Yeah.
I love concave.
Okay.
And I really like 7838.
That's a fairly common one in concave.
Yeah. But I also like 3/4 7/16, which is a bit old school, but you get loads of refits out of that. It's great.
Right. Yeah. What size of shoes do you normally have to keep stock of?
I just have a cross section, really. Anything literally from pony to shire. Anything over sort of, can I say names? Am I allowed to say? Yeah, so anything like over a 6 libero, or 5s really, but a 6 is libero we make.
Right.
At a flat section,
Mm-hmm.
fully all placed up.
Okay.
And that's just really because obviously the apprentices need to make them, and it gives them something that they can learn off when they actually put it on the horse's foot, whether they go right or wrong. And
Right.
like generally the progression is phenomenal. My current apprentice, when he first started, and he can go and shoe the horse now with handmade shoes himself. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
from where he was to where he is now. Well, that's a lot of hard work on his behalf, so it's pretty good.
Yeah. In following that, do you have a favorite brand of cake shoe? Is it the Mustads or?
I use the Mustads. I use handmade shoes. I use a cross section of also, Strom's Home. I don't favour anything, but if I do favour something, it's concave shoes.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll keep making them. The trouble is it's so expensive, the steel itself.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
understand where it's coming from. But if anybody wants to make some concave, they'll make themselves some money if it's a reasonable price. There's a lot of people still like concave, But the shoes, when years ago, the machine-made shoes, they weren't very good at all, They've come on. They have, we're talking about things progressing.
Yeah.
The shoes are now very good. And also, the pads and everything, everything's just gone wow, hasn't it,
Mm-hmm.
You ever walk around here, some of the things you think, well, wish I'd had those 30 years ago.
Yeah. But you think of a few you could have used.
So there's progression on that, going back to the question about the forging, there's definitely progression on the glue shoes and anything like that. The options are out there, but they weren't before, so that's good.
Right. Well, and I guess this is a good lead into, if you've got a horse that's footy or has an undiagnosed lameness, do you have a shoe or a package that you'll try?
To be honest with you, the vets that we use around at home, they're very good, and the majority of them are very good. You'll take their advice and go. But yeah, I use a lot of that dental impression now. I'm a big convert to that. That's been quite good with underneath pads and that.
As do I.
But I also fabricate a lot of, I'll fit a shoe up first and then weld the bar in.
Okay. Yeah.
So I use Hogan inserts, which I find very good.
Okay.
They're very versatile, so you can fit the shoe up and then pop your bar in there, weld it up, another quick burn on again, and then a bit of dental impression underneath, and away you go. So
okay.
You can cut the inserts out with a disc cutter and re-weld them into another one, yeah.
Right, and use them again. I think it was Stephen Bean who said that in an interview, and I'd never thought of that before. But yeah.
You want to see how many's on my workshop floor. Well, why not?
Yeah, yeah.
Recycling.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just saving the environment. Do you have a favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
Normally Stella.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, I don't soak in the bath or anything like that. I use I have a sports massage therapy, whatever, about every 5-6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a bit of back problem about 7 years ago. It's just muscular, fortunately, so I just go and have my back done just over once a month. I think it does. I don't know whether it works but it seems to keep it at bay. So
then you keep doing it. Favorite drink? Is it Stella?
I only drink lager and wine.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't do spirits, fortunately.
Right. If you were stuck in a shop with somebody for a month, who would you want it to be?
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. It cuts people out of the list and puts people on it, I guess.
Well, I don't know. That's a very good. You've put me right on the spot there, because I would have said Gary, but I spend a lot of time with Gary anyway, so we'd probably kill one another after a month. Dave Smith, he's a fantastic shoemaker.
Okay.
There's one or two, really, Andrew Castley, phenomenal, experienced.
Okay.
There's quite a few of the Scottish contingent that I could spend a bit of time with. But
you might even learn Scottish. You might understand what they're saying.
If you have quite a few pints of Guinness, it makes it a little easier. You can understand them.
Yeah. The translator, liquid translator. I guess the last question, what would you have been if not a farrier?
I don't know. I'd probably annoy everybody with something. I don't know. I have no idea. I wanted to be a policeman, believe it or not.
Really?
And my father said, no son of mine is going to be a policeman.
Well,
poo-pooed that. So I don't really know. I think it would have to be something practical. I don't think I like being inside for very long.
No, I don't think any of us do.
I don't think I could be a prisoner. It'd have to be something outside, I think, or something practical.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was pretty easy, wasn't it?
Well, it might be for you.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Hopefully meet you over there sometime.
Yeah, that would be great.
Brilliant. Thank you.